Okay, good afternoon, everyone, whoever has joined me so far. We have with us, we have today Jamin, and Jamin was a archaeology major and GIS student here in UWL. He just graduated in May 2023, and now he is in a very leading role for a Swiss drone company. And I will let Jamin explain his role and his experience and talk about his professional career so far and ambitions. And I will thank Jamin, and over to you.
All right. Hello. Like Dr. Misha said, my name is Jamin Wolfe. And up until May of last year, I was a student there at UWL. I graduated with a degree in archaeology and geoarchaeology. So I'm by no means a GIS major or expert. Sorry. I got devices talking to me. I apologize. But yeah, I was by no means a GIS expert or a major. But what I did do is take Dr. Misha's classes and leverage them towards my academic and professional future. And some of that I would like to share with you guys. So I'm going to share my screen here.
I just made you a co-host, so you should be able to do it now.
Perfect. There we go. Can you guys see my screen? Cool. And again, if anybody has any questions during this, feel free to pipe up, interrupt me. I'm pretty informal when it comes to just about everything, and have no problem whatsoever answering any questions you guys may have. So like I said, my name is Jamin. I work for a company called FLYABILITY. It's a Swiss drone company out of Lausanne, Switzerland. We make a LiDAR-enabled drone for indoor use, designed for indoor use. There we go. The idea behind the company basically is no more humans doing dangerous jobs. So the impetus behind the company originally from the CEO was to build a drone that could go places where people can't or shouldn't. That being said, was that a question? Nope. Okay. So the company was established in 2014, so relatively new, still technically in the startup phase, which is nice. And FLYABILITY has pioneered and continues to lead the innovation in commercial indoor drone space. And the company is dedicated intensely to R&D and manufacturing, and drives alternative methods to visual inspection when it comes to indoor space. So this is my kind of formal spiel part of this. So as you can see right here, this is one of our drones. This is the E3. It is a fully caged drone, LiDAR enabled, and is designed to fly in dangerous and confined spaces that are typically GPS denied. So what does that mean? The way a typical drone that everybody knows flies and stabilizes is through a GPS signal. The drone takes that GPS signal, as well as usually some distance sensors, but it basically takes that drone and tells it where it is in space. Same thing with your phone. Your phone knows where you're at. It's basically the same technology in the drone that is telling the drone where it's at and allows it to stay stable. So without the drone knowing where it's at, it has no way to keep itself stable and would fly all over the place and do basically uncontrollable movements. The way we have solved that is through a LiDAR and VIO camera addition that basically allows the drone to know where it's at in real time. So there are two main drones that the company has. The Helios 3, which is our main flagship, and the E2, which is the older one and is slowly being phased out, which is purely an RGB drone and works on camera identification and photogrammetry, which we can get into a little more later. But the company is a full stack solution. We do everything. We do R&D, we do manufacturing, we do all the software development, we do all the assembly, we do all the shipping, we do all the sales, we do all the marketing, and on my end, we support all of those things. So what do? I am a customer technical support specialist for blah, right? What does that mean? I provide remote product mission support for users and employees when things go sideways or they have a question. This could be anything from crashes to not knowing how to put a battery in to knowing how to use the software correctly. I'm one of 4 people in this role and the only one in the hemisphere. So there's a lot on my shoulders. Basically, if it's broken or not being able to be used, I'm the one that people come to. So anytime anyone has an issue with anything, I'm the one they reach out to. It's a very broad topic. Yeah, I need to learn a lot. And yeah, I've had to learn a lot. And no, I certainly do not get bored. So what you can see on the screen here on the very right one is this is a view of our inspector program that runs the drone data. On the right side of that, you can see the live screen. On the left, you can see the LiDAR. And on this little movie, this is what an actual post-processed LiDAR flight looks like with the drone. So it's pretty neat stuff. So big thing with me and the company is work-life balance. I spend about 90% of my time at home, and I spend a lot of time in front of computers. So this is where I spend most of my time. This is where you see me at right now. I do have an office I go to rarely because it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me to go there most of the time. But this is the headquarters in Switzerland, where I spent 2 weeks doing my onboarding, which was very nice. It's right on the shores of Geneva. And this is the actual headquarters where everything is done in-house and is a pretty neat place. So it's not a bad gig. So how did I get to where I am now? I started as an archaeology major and graduated as an archaeology major. My focus was in geophysical archaeology. I took a introduction GIS class as an elective because I thought it might be a cool thing to do, and wound up really liking the software and what it could do. And from there, I got into Dr. Mishra's UAS class. Now, the UAS class has really opened my eyes to a lot of different things. Not only that flying drones around is cool, but the data you collect from them is incredibly useful. And you can do a lot of different things with it. In my case, I wound up taking what I learned in his class and getting an independent research grant to go to Serbia and spend 2 months flying around in the fields in northern Serbia to develop a system of identifying archaeological sites in basically low relief terrain. I leveraged everything that I had learned in the class, the skills that I had gained in that, and took all the opportunities that the school provides in order to get paid to go do some research on my own. And I would highly recommend everyone in the class do that. So, like I said, I'm not a GIS graduate, but it doesn't matter. In order to be successful when you guys are done with school or in future in general, it is really important that you build a diversified skill set no matter on what you plan on doing. I had not planned 2 years ago to be sitting where I am right now. But what allowed me to do that is the skill sets that I developed along my path to graduating, right? And a big piece of that is GIS and the UAS class after that. And there's something that really goes along with that is you never want to try and pigeonhole yourself. You're not a GIS student. I wasn't an archaeology student, right? You're a student. You're learning how to do all these different things. as much as you can, diversify those things and leverage all of them. The more you can, you'll see that one thing doesn't fit. If that one thing doesn't fit, you can go out and you can create that other thing. And that's a really important thing you guys need to know. So ultimately, yeah, it's all about the possibilities. An introduction to GIS is all about the possibilities. It's broad strokes, big picture stuff. It's a foot in the door to visualization technologies that are used for everything, right? So one of the biggest things I could say to anybody who's in an introductory level GIS is that you've got a really big opportunity to expose yourself to technologies and concepts that most schools only offer on a graduate level. And it's a really big deal. With the geography department and Dr. Mishra's expertise and experience in particular, you've got a really big resource if this is something that really turns you on and you like this kind of stuff. And GIS is about visualizing the world in the past, present, and future. Everything that happens, has happened or will happen, can be tied to somewhere. And that's how you can share this stuff. It's about showing and sharing. And it can be very creative and expressive. Just because it's data and it's on computers doesn't mean you can't do creative, cool stuff with it. So why geographic information stuff, whether it be service, support, science, whatever, it tells you where the stuff is, why the stuff is where it's at, and how the stuff got there, where the stuff is going, what other stuff is with the stuff. At the simplest, all it is, it's just you're visualizing data. And that's a really important thing. So if I could say anything, right, things to get started now, just pieces of advice as you guys are, and no matter what point you are in your college career, start looking for a job now. And why do I say that? Because you never know what you're going to find that may pique your interest that isn't in your wheelhouse that you're thinking about, right? Find careers that sound cool. Start building the skill set required to land them, right? If you can look forward and see this job looks awesome, I'd really like to do that. And at the beginning of your college career, start developing those skills to get you to that point. Start doing it now. And create a resume. Don't care how old you are, where you are, start doing it now. You're going to write hundreds of them. You're going to write hundreds of them. Start doing it now. You're going to have more revisions than you know what to do with. Reach out to the companies that you're interested in. Make sure they know you exist. It's really hard for companies to give anything about you because most of them are big. So if you can start now and reach out and say, hi, I am Jamin. I'm interested in your company at some point in my life. I am thinking about applying for a career in this and that field in your company. Can you give me some guidance? Most of the time, you're going to get a response in the affirmative, and they're going to give you some good feedback. It may not happen within a week or two or three sometimes, but they will get back to you. And if grad school is your next thing, because I thought it was mine, start writing letters of interest to grad schools right away. Find programs that you think are cool. Write to those professors. Ask them what's going on. Say hi. Doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be formal. Doesn't have to be fancy. Reach out. Say hi. Just get your name in their brain. And the biggest thing right now, get to know your professors at UWL. They're really smart people. And most of them like to help you. They're there for that, you know? So reach out, get to know your professors, leverage the knowledge that they have in front of you. And, you know, do your damnedest to build a personal relationship. Because those are the people that you're going to wind up talking to and leaning on, and vice versa for probably the rest of your lives. And I think that's about all I got it for the formal piece of this. Give me a second. I'll stop sharing this if I can. Sorry, I haven't used Zoom in like a year. There we go. So little hands-on. This is the drone that I was talking about. This is the Helios 3. So it's a rather large drone. For those of you who are familiar with them, you can see that it is definitely larger than your typical DJI, but it is also a flying computer. It has an NVIDIA processor built into it, does on-the-fly processing, point clouds. Let me pull up another video here. Give me just a second and give you a really cool. This is a project that one of the CEOs is working on right now that I'm giving him a hand with the data. But this is the first person view, side of a mountain in Switzerland, what you would see as you're flying the drone, essentially. And as it's flying, it's collecting millions and millions.
You'll have to share your screen first.
Oh, I forgot to push a button. Sorry.
No problem.
You see it now? Okay. So as I was saying, this is the side of a mountain. This is a ski resort in Switzerland that they've been doing some testing on, some proof of concept testing on. And as you can see, this is, you know, kind of a first person view of the drone. But after post-processing, this is the kind of data we get. Now, this is millions and millions and millions and millions of individual points built into what's called a point cloud. This is all LiDAR data. And the difference between LiDAR and what your normal camera on a regular drone is LiDAR is an active sensor. So LiDAR is actually reaching out, sending beams out of itself in order to develop these images. And it measures the return of that beam, similar to like the echo of a sound wave. This is another one. This is a bridge that is being done in, oh God, I think this is Denmark. But this is the post-process fly-through data. Now, up until very recently, the company has been focused solely on indoor assets. We do large power generation, we do mines, we do refineries, we do anything you can imagine indoors that is either sketchy or hard to get to. But with the advent of our new LiDAR and some post-processing tricks, we can now develop entire outdoor landscapes, such as this bridge, which is pretty cool stuff. So, right, as I said, this is the drone. Kind of looks like something out of the Matrix, I know. It's a pretty neat looking thing. But this back piece right here, this is the actual LiDAR unit itself. We call it a little puck. But what there is in there is there's a series of lasers and a rotating mirror, and it shoots out thousands and thousands of LiDAR pulses, laser pulses. And all those returns come back into this and develop the maps that you saw on the screen. So as I said, it's not a terribly small thing, and that is all controlled with a controller about that big. So this isn't something you throw in your backpack and take down the road, right? This comes in a giant shipping container, shipping box that we send them in. It is not easy to move around, but it is all field deployable. And the idea behind the drones is that they are fully maintainable and fully serviceable in the field. They're modular. Everything in the drone is designed to be serviced. Almost everything in the drone is designed to be serviced in the field by the user in case something happens. And that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, is talking with people and giving them the information and the knowledge they need in order to get up and flying. Now, the reason behind this is the majority of our customers are in very remote or hard to access environments. So they can't just walk to the office, give us a phone call and say, hey, I'm going to send my drone in. You know, they are in Peru at 14,000 feet flying their drone, and a motor overheats. They need to know how to replace that motor and do that on site. We have a lot of users in the power gen industry, especially in nuclear. They are kind of the bane of my existence at the moment, but they run their stuff really hard, and they need to be able to fix it because it is all dosed with radiation. So the figure I heard from one of our users the other day is that for every dose of radiation that a person takes, it costs them $25,000 a minute for a person to go in there to a radiation saturated environment. So if you can send a drone in instead of a person, that's just a lot of savings right up front, right there, and a lot of data that's being collected. At this point, does anybody have any questions? I know I've kind of thrown a lot of stuff at you guys.
How much does a unit like the one that you showed us cost?
To get started in the door is about 50 grand. But that is, you are getting a lot. You are getting a fully capable LiDAR enabled drone. It is the only one on the market, and is very, very, very robust. The major drawback, the only drawback to the entire system itself is that the batteries themselves only last about 8 to 12 minutes, depending on your flight environment. So you have to do multiple flights. And one of the things that we've worked on really hard is developing in our software the ability to do merged flights. So you fly one battery, you come back, switch it out, fly another battery, so that this software itself merges all those flights into one system. But yeah, it's a commercial, it's an enterprise solution, meaning that it's geared towards businesses and corporations. Yes, we do have a few individual users who have the money to do it, but it is a commercial enterprise scale solution, and we do all the back end support for that as well. So it's not just the drone that's getting paid for; it's the software, the backup, the support, the updates, all the research and development that goes into past and future development with the drone, which is all included in the price of it. And I stay away from sales because I don't like selling stuff.
I came to your talk a little bit late. My apologies. This is Doug Kearns talking.
Hey, Doug.
Hey, I was in your UAB class.
Yeah.
With Dr. Mishra. Could you once again just say the name of the company so I can do a Google search?
Oh, FLYABILITY. Let me FLY. Just spell it just like it says. FLYABILITY.com. And all the information's on there. Both cockpit, which is the software, the actual live flight software, and the inspector, which is the post-processing software that we have, are both free. So if you want to download those and play with them, by all means. And if Dr. Mishra wanted to set up a time for somebody to come out and do a demo, I can fly one of our guys out there and do a demo for you guys. We've got 2 dedicated guys in the office that's their job, just that. So there's a lot of cool positions and stuff like this. Yeah.
It sounds fascinating. It, to your point of it, most drones being dependent upon some type of a GPS system. You're jumping into brand new territory for people. So, very interesting stuff.
Yeah, so it's stabilized with the LiDAR and a combination of the LiDAR and the VIO sensors. And the VIO sensor is a black and white camera that essentially takes distance measurements through triangulation, kind of similar to how distances are done in photogrammetry. But through a combination of those two, it's processed on board live, and the drone really is very, very, very stable. Even outdoors in a little bit of a breeze, it's really stable.
So, but you've seen the DJIs, the Phantom 4s, and the Mavics. It's comparable to that in stability.
Yeah, it is absolutely. No, I personally, I've got an Air 2S. I think our drone, the E3 is more stable than my DJI.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's got all the bells and whistles that come along with a crazy modern day drone, full recording of everything, and all the lighting is insane on these things because they're designed to be, flown in mines and stuff like that. But I was going to fly one around for you guys, but I didn't get into the office this morning because I had some emergency stuff come up right before this, but I apologize for that. So it's a little ad hoc, but yeah, it's all really, really neat stuff. And working for a Swiss company is great. Anybody ever gets the opportunity, I highly recommend it.
I'm part of the Houston County drone team, like search and rescue stuff.
Yeah.
And they've got a very neat setup. They took an old ambulance and put in a 60-inch monitor in it. They fly a Matrix 200 with a RGB and infrared camera on it. But they're limited to a GPS signal and some type of stabilization that way. That drone, I think, is with the cameras is probably close to $35,000 or $40,000 too. Is there any in your situation with that? With an only 8-minute flight time, it might be more difficult to use your drone for a search and rescue on an indoor type situation, but maybe it's possible.
You'd be surprised what you can get with 8 minutes.
I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, it's a really capable thing. And we do have a number of organizations that do use it for search and rescue. Japan uses it a lot. There is we've actually just had a case study come out about search and rescue for earthquake survivors, earthquake victims. And then in Korea, actually, they just sent it down into a sewer and found a guy who was trapped in a sewer who got chased in there by, I don't know, I didn't get the details on why he was in there. They managed to fly it in there. And just because of how bright it is and the noise it makes, the guy was able to follow it out. And that was all. And that was all a function of that LiDAR capability, being able to build that live map as it's flying in and be able to find its way out. But it's pretty fast too. If you want to fly it fast, you can fly it pretty dang fast.
Anybody else questions for our speaker? Basic questions, advanced question, everything is welcome. Don't feel shy.
I got a question real quick. So you said you didn't see yourself in this position a couple of years ago. Where did you see yourself actually going?
Well, I had started school at UWL with the idea that I was going to go into geophysics. I wanted to get into ground penetrating radar, magnetometry, stuff like that. And after, the first semester I took a GIS class, I realized how many assets the school has around remote sensing in general. And one of the big draws was the UAS class, like I spoke about. And after probably maybe even just the first class, I realized, I was like, oh my God, I can use this for archaeology. This is going to be awesome. This is what I'm doing. And my focus shifted just like that, right? Part of it's the availability of the technology and the professors who really, really know what they're doing. And part of it, sometimes you branch out. You find something else that's interesting too. And if it's more available, go for it, right? So yeah, I definitely saw myself in the role of going more the traditional archaeology route. I was applying, was going to go do the grad school thing. I still did apply for grad schools and stuff after I graduated. But along with that, started putting out some job applications, and this company, FLYABILITY, they made me a really good offer that I wound up really, 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 really being happy with. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey for sure. I spent 3 summers doing field work. One in the, I spent one entire summer in the Midwest, in Minnesota, the Southwest Midwest, soaked in mosquitoes, and did a summer in Turkey. And then the summer before last, spent 2 months in Serbia on a undergraduate research and creativity grant, where with a combination of that and another outside grant, was able to pay for not only a drone, but a laptop and all the software in order to do my research myself, and wound up doing a really big, long, boring thesis on it with the help of Dr. Misher.
More questions, guys. Like 20, 21 of you, only 2 or 3 have asked questions. I know a lot of you are wondering about a lot of different things. Just ask.
Yeah, I got a question. Whenever you whenever you guys come up with a new project or like flying the drone, how much planning has to go into that?
You'd be surprised how very little. So for instance, if a lot of this stuff that gets flown is flown because it's unknown. So I take the example of a mine shaft, for instance. If someone needs to know what's going on in their mine because no one's been in there in 50 years, there's really no way to plan for that. You have a general idea of which direction the mine's going to go in, but you don't really know what's happened to all that rock, all that wood shoring, and all those things. So a lot of the time, it's plug the drone in, turn it on, and fly it in and see what's there. And that's really kind of, that's, to be perfectly honest, what happens a lot of the time. We have instances where Eric, one of the guys who I work with, he's our head of ops here in the US, and is a really, really, really good pilot. He just went and did the Coors Brewery. So, there's some planning that goes into it, because you know where you're going to fly and what asset, or what you're actually going to be flying in or around. But a lot of the time you don't know what you're going to get into until you get there. And that's really kind of the idea behind it. That's why there's that big cage, that big halo that's built around the drone, so you can smack it up and beat it up a little. I wouldn't drop it off a building, as some people have, but it's a pretty robust system, and it's designed for exploration.
So for normal drone flying and doing a business, we need Part 107. Do we have the same thing applies here?
No. So because it is an indoor drone, you do not need technically to have a Part 107 commercially, right? And there's interesting ways around that. So Part 107 says that even if you take off outside and I fly 5 feet to get indoors, I am still under section or Part 107 regulation. I still need to have a license. But if you put up a canopy, a portable awning, you don't need it anymore. But the vast majority of our US customers have 107 licenses and are very skilled pilots. We actually have a pretty rigorous training program that we have all new users go through. And our 2 guys, Eric and Juan, who take care of ops for us, have a very good training program. Actually, at our Denver office, which I'm sorry, I was going to show you guys, but in the back, we've converted a warehouse space into an indoor drone training ground, which is low light, and you can't see or hear anything. So it's a really good, beginner to advanced training ground for the drone.
Would you say that, I use a lot of DJI drones, in my knowledge of the drone history and development of hardware and software, says that in the last 10 years, DJI hardware-wise has just outcompeted everybody else out there. Their hardware is so superior. So in one hand, first time I taught a drone class 8 years ago, drone was flying 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And now we have lighter batteries and drone is flying 45 minutes. We have our VTOL, which flies for an hour. And there are VTOLs who have come up in the market in 5 years, and they are flying for 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, right? So I'm trying to put things into perspective about flyability as to, is it that you guys need some kind of engineering on the side of the hardware, why is it that we only get 8 or 10 minutes of flight time?
So a big piece of that is the weight of the drone in general. I should have pulled it out. But my little DJI drone, even a Phantom 4, a big one, is probably a quarter of the weight of this. This is a big, heavy beast, right? And at the same time, you have to realize that not only is the battery powering just the drone, it's also powering the LiDAR, the onboard CPU, which does all the live processing, all 4 of the LED banks, which are, I think, like 60,000 lumens or something like that. Full 4K camera, thermal camera, VIOs, and all of the stability sensors, as well as a temp sensor, and in some cases, radiometric sensor. And being able to get 8 minutes out of that is pretty good. We use lithium-ion technology batteries, just like everybody else, but our batteries are this big, right? They're huge. This is essentially the same technology that goes into a DJI battery, the same ones that I have. The big difference is weight and what is being driven by the battery itself. I will be the first person to admit our battery technology is not great. It is definitely something we're working on, and there are several solutions in the pipe for it. It is a big barrier to entrance for some people, having a 9 to 12 or 8 to 12 minute limited flight time, especially when you have to ruck all this stuff out to some fairly remote places.
Thank you. More questions, folks. We got 10 more minutes here.
So you said you spent the summer in Turkey. What were you doing there?
I was working on an archaeological research project called Banjuklu. I don't know if you're familiar with the site of Çatalhöyük, which is a real famous UNESCO World Heritage Site. But it's a smaller site that's about 7 kilometers from that, and about 3,000 years older. I was doing very, very small scale archaeological excavation, mostly micro botanical remains and super, super small lithic remains in Stone Age roundhouses or Neolithic roundhouses that were about 10,000 years old. It was really, really cool. It was a really neat experience, and I did that purely to expand my skill set and what I could do and what I want to be exposed to, because you don't really kind of know what you want to do until sometimes until you see it.
So we have different students from different backgrounds, Jamin. I would like to ask for your perspective on this now that you are in the industry, right? So you are meeting these different companies and their representative and see what's going on in the industry, right? Whereas my perspective is mostly academic. I collect data, I publish research. So from your industry perspective, what would you say to our students, some of our students, or I can say I was like that in undergrad and grad school too, that I would say, oh, I like to be outside. I don't want to spend time on computer. I enjoy being outside. Computers are not my thing. So talk a little bit about the possibility of doing professional, climbing professionally and developing professionally if you find yourself sitting in front of computers versus when you're saying, I'm not a computer guy, I want a job which keeps me outside, I don't want to be in the computers. What do you think a student should be motivated to do, and talk about this a little bit? Where do you see more growth and more money and more employability 5 years from now, 10 years from now in this kind of field that you are in?
Yeah. Well, first I would say, like, anybody who has more of a outdoor and field bent, I would say just stick with it. So do I, right? Yeah, I spend a lot of my time in front of a computer, but I also live up in the mountains outside of Denver with a hiking trail, like a couple mile or a couple, maybe 100 yards from my door. So that's how I've mitigated that. So there's ways to do both, right? Sometime I was offered a really good opportunity with this company for, the kind of money and benefits that make you go, well, let's do that for a while. You know what I mean? So there's ways to do both, right? If you really do want a field career, where you want to be out there doing this stuff every day, we've got people that do that. Our ops guys, Eric and Juan, travel probably 80% of their time and are on airplanes and are out in the field doing this stuff all the time. Now, in respect to your question of, kind of going up the career ladder, that's kind of where field stuff stops. Once you get really good at field stuff and you get responsible for doing, a whole region's worth of stuff, it's pretty tough to branch out from there. Anything that's going to be progressive in a career path is going to revolve around doing desk work, dealing with people, and learning how to compromise and learning how to listen, right? So I think there's a lot of growth individually, right, in both areas, and you can have both. And I think I've done a pretty good job of doing that. I really, really, really value my ability to be outside and do all these things. I've got a giant window that looks at a mountain, right? And there's a reason I moved to where I did, because I knew I was going to be sitting at a desk for quite a bit of my time, having to do these things. So you don't have to have one or the other necessarily. There are definitely ways to incorporate both. But I think the industry is really going to be looking more and more for people who can do all of those things, right? It's going to be really important that you can go out and do your data collection and your field work. But then what? You need to be able to do something with that data, right? Collecting the data and flying the drone, as an example, are the easy part. It's what you do with the data afterwards and how you disseminate that information. That's the important stuff. And that's where kind of the growth in the industry is.
Questions, guys? You have 5 more minutes here.
There's one here from Haley. How are multi-point errors mitigated in indoor underground environments when a flight path may be unknown because the area is unknown and a remote operator able to change the flight? There is no flight path. You make it up as you go. 100%. There's no pre-programmed anything. You can't program a flight path into these things, even if you had to. It is all operator control, right? So there's no programmable anything on it. That's pretty much how they go. And in regards to mitigating the error, there's very little. So there's so much data being collected, and the onboard processing is so robust that any doubling or tripling of points is usually taken care of. And if you do get any of that in the post-processing, in the more advanced software that you'd have to do on a desktop or a high-end like laptop or like gaming computer, all of that stuff can be post-processed out.
So the last, does it produce a loss file, loss format, or is it raw data?
So the drone itself, when it sends the data to Inspector, which is our desktop program, that creates a LAS file, an LAS file, right? It's a sparse cloud. If you guys know what I'm sure a few of you in there know what I'm talking about, a sparse cloud. But all that background data is still in there associated with the flight information. And we take that flight information and put it into another piece of software called Faro Connect, and that's what densifies it and turns those thousands of points into millions of points and gets those really high quality, cool flight paths that you see kind of on a couple of the videos that I've shown. And the next thing down the pipe is going to be RGB LiDAR data. So you can look out for that one.
Where do you see drone capabilities going in the future?
Yeah, everywhere. So there's autonomy is a big thing. Autonomous flight is a really, really big thing, especially in the outdoor space. There's a big demand for autonomous drones that'll do stuff by themselves all the time. Take off, land, collect data, go out, do it over and over. You can imagine a refinery plant that needs to have all of its pipes inspected on a regular basis. If you can set a base station with a drone on it and a power cord that keeps that thing charged, and every 2 days that drone takes off, does a flight, comes back, uploads the data. That's a big place that the drone industry is going. Another one is the way that our stuff is going, indoor inspection and LiDAR data. It's a big thing. We're really kind of ahead of the industry on this one. It's pretty neat. There's a lot of people trying to do what we do. They don't do it very well. But yeah, I would say autonomy is a huge one. And artificial intelligence, like everything. Getting these drones to be able to make simple decisions on their own when it comes to flying is also another big one. That and drone swarms are pretty neat too.
Somebody had a question? Zach, probably.
Yeah. Do you have anybody that just specifically looks at the data collected and doesn't get into the field?
Yes, we do. Yes, we certainly do. I do a lot of that, just kind of as a starting point. Whenever our customers have, like I said, I do support for all of our stuff. So if our customers have problems processing their data or post-processing their data or rectifying their data or geolocating anything, they come to me. I am the quote unquote software expert in the support team. So yeah, I do a lot of that. There is also a guy by the name of Michael Blake, who is the actual expert when it comes to the LiDAR data. And yeah, his job is 100% playing with the data. Yeah, he goes out in the field and observes because he just likes to get out of the office. But he does a lot of that. And to speak to that, I mean, there are a lot of professional positions out there that are looking for imagery analysis, GIS analysts, LiDAR analysts. If you can get a security clearance, you can work at any military base in the country. That's a huge thing here in Colorado. They're always looking for satellite imagery and remote drone imagery analysts. There's just a ton of this stuff out there. If you do a simple search on Indeed for geospatial analyst, it'll give you a million different ideas. So that's a really good place to start.
What kind of skill sets do you think our students should focus on graduating with if they want to, apply for those geospatial analyst positions?
Yeah, that's a good question. A really, really big one. This is going to sound simple, but a really big thing is file structures, right? Learning how to keep and create file structure. All right. If you have data and you lose it in the, madness of your laptop file structure, it doesn't do you any good. I see a lot of that, a ton of that. But that's a big one. Learning, just the simple basic stuff that you're going to get in GIS1, GIS2 is a huge thing. Being able to say that you have this on your resume, saying that you've had a GIS class is going to get you in the door with just about anybody as, a GIS analyst 1, for instance. A lot of these places are running proprietary software or very specific versions of software that you guys are going to get experience or or be exposed to. So any of these places that you're going to go into are going to give you some training, right? The biggest thing is the willingness and not going into some place thinking you know it all, because I can pretty much guarantee you don't. So those are kind of the two big ones. File structure, it sounds simple, but not enough people hound on that one. Learn how to use a file structure. It's really, really important.
Should we care about learning proprietary software more, or open source more, or learn more what software looks like? Because in the future, we need to be adapting to some other software that's thrown at us. What do you think?
I think the biggest thing is just having an introduction and an exposure to any of it, really, because there's no way to forecast which way an organization is going to go. You have companies like, oh my God, I just blanked out. But there's, companies that do full inspections all the time, and they don't release anything about their software. There's no way to train for that. It's impossible, right? You just can't. Open source is a good way to go. A lot of people use it. But again, like us, for instance, all of our stuff is proprietary. I can send you can get, the free version of our desktop software, and I can send you sample data sets to play with, and you can, have fun doing that. But again, that is very use case specific to our company. So I think the biggest thing that helped me is being able to say that, hey, I know how to use ArcGIS. I've used ArcMap. I'm fairly proficient with photogrammetry when it comes to Pix4D. And that's the kind of thing people want to hear. Because if you know the basics, if you know what those things are, you can really be trained, around it, And I would say the biggest thing, if you're ever applying or looking at a company, always take into consideration how you fit. It's got to feel right. Never take a position where you're like, I don't know about this place. I don't know if I really fit in with all these people. It's really, really important. Your workplace camaraderie and your communications inter-company. You do it all day. I don't care what position you're in. You're going to do it all day. You got to be able to get along with people.
Anybody have a question? Last one, probably, maybe last two questions.
Well, if anybody has anything in the future, feel free to reach out to me. Be really easy to get a hold of. And I try to be pretty responsive. And, I like to help. So if there's anything, anybody wants to bounce off me, ask me about whatever, it doesn't matter. Feel free, please, by all means, reach out.
Thanks, Jamin.
Thanks, Doug.
Talk to you later.
Yeah, buddy.
Thank you so much, Jamin. And I think I'm going to share your email with our students so they can be in touch with you. And I might take you up on your offer next semester when I teach the drone class. So there might be a couple of students who are not attending today. I will share this video with them and then maybe invite you for one shorter lecture about some updates next semester in the drone class, and possibly fly your equipment here. If that's okay, or we'll talk about
Absolutely.
it later.
I was just talking to our marketing team about this, I think like last month. And they're like, oh yeah, we don't know who else to branch out and reach out to sales. I was like, well, have you tried universities? I was like, the program I came from has an incredibly robust, remote sensing program. And it's like,
we can have like folks from Viterbo. I think physics department will be interested, archaeology will be interested.
Yeah.
So not just a geography, thing, but interdepartmental or whole collegiate thing. So yeah, I know I've taken more than an hour of your time, so I'll just stop the recording here.